video is going to look at something called redox, which is a combination of reduction and oxidation. First of all, you need to be aware that a gain of oxygen is called oxidation, which probably means that a loss of oxidation is the opposite of that, which is reduction. And similarly, we often find in chemistry that if we reduce something, often we're actually gaining hydrogen. So that's a common general statement to make about reduction. Gain of hydrogen is reduction, and if that's true, then loss of hydrogen must be the opposite, which is oxidation. So just to recap, if you're gaining oxygen, that's called oxidation. If you're losing oxidation, that's the opposite, which is reduction. These are both involving oxygen. We could also define redox in terms of hydrogen. Gain of hydrogen is the opposite of gain of oxygen. Gain of hydrogen is reduction. Therefore, loss of hydrogen is oxidation. And the last thing to say is that oil rig is a commonly used phrase. So what we've got here is O-I-L-R-I-G. We can also say oxidation is loss of electrons, reduction is gain. We're going to have a look at a few examples to see how that actually works out in practice. So the first example that we're actually going to apply this to is zinc reacting with oxygen to produce zinc oxide, the formula of which is ZNO. You should know that from your valency table. So what we're going to do, before we balance this, we're actually going to look at the individual components. We're going to look at the zinc first and see what happens to it over here. Then we're going to look at the oxygen and see what happens to it over here. First of all, in the beginning, we've got zinc and it hasn't reacted with anything. In that case, if it's not reacted with anything new, it's always got an oxidation number or a valency of 0. Over here, you know that zinc has now reacted. It's lost electrons, and remember, it's probably lost the electrons to oxygen. If it's lost electrons, it must have formed the zinc 2+ ion. And let's have a look at the oxygen now. There's oxygen here. So oxygen, we can put O or O2, and it's reacted, and it's produced this here, which is O, but remember it's an ionic compound, so it's now gained electrons. So we have to say O minus 2. You know that because if you've got the formula here of an ionic compound, Zn is +2 and it forms the compound and O is minus 2. Zn is +2, O is minus 2. To make these equations balance, zinc here has lost electrons. It's lost 2 electrons because it's got a +2 charge. So we write it as if it's produced 2 electrons. So just to recap, zinc has produced this and it's separated from 2 electrons. So zinc produces zinc 2+ and 2 electrons. On the other hand, oxygen over here has gained electrons to form this. It's gained 2 electrons, 2 negative charges. So we can write that. You'll see here the zinc has produced this and it's also produced this. So zinc has lost these 2 electrons. Start again. Has lost 2 electrons. If we cast our mind back to the previous slide, loss of electrons here is oxidation. So zinc must have been oxidized. Oops. Over here, oxygen has gained 2 electrons. Reduction is gained. So, oops. Gained 2 electrons. So, reduced. So we're saying that this stuff here is oxidized, and this stuff here is reduced because it's gained electrons. We haven't balanced it yet. Remember, oxygen goes around in pairs. So if we were to write 2 here, we'd need to gain 4 electrons to produce 2 O2- ions. That being the case, if we have a look here, these 2 electrons that zinc releases are then used by the oxygen to form O2 minus ions, but we've only got 2 here. We need to have 4 for this whole reaction to go ahead, so we need to double up here. We need to have 4 electrons here. To do that, we must produce 2 zinc ions, which means we start off with 2 zinc atoms. Overall, that means that zinc, 2 zincs react with 1 oxygen to produce 2 zinc oxides. Last thing to mention is we've now got this completed, this full equation. This full equation is made up of 2 half equations. This is one half of the equation, it's the oxidation half, and this one is the reduction half. So zinc has been oxidized because it's lost these 2 electrons, hasn't gained the electrons. This zinc here has produced this and it's produced this, so this zinc has lost these 4 electrons. These 2 zincs have lost these 4 electrons. Oxygen, on the other hand, the oxygen molecule O2 gains these 4 electrons, which must be reduction. The oxygen gains the electrons to form 2 oxide ions. The 2 zinc ions and the 2 oxide ions combine together to make 2 zinc oxide. Hopefully that's clear.